And then the third phase of the project would be to look at any policy implications, what we should be doing as countries, what should we be doing as regions to address whatever we find. So one of the key components of this research is to really, we all know this, that sometimes we do research and then research ends there. You have a lot of findings, you report it, you publish in very good scientific journal, high impact, but it doesn't end up changing anything. So IDRC is very much concerned with coming right from the start of the research, bringing together the people who can help bring change, so that if there are policy implications arising from this research, those policies can actually be implemented. And if there's a need for advocacy, advocates from CSO can be around to do it. And sometimes our media people think that it's just to cover, but we also think that the media plays an important role in what is covered and how things are covered. And they can also help to address problems in the country. So this consultative workshop, which is happening today, is to bring together people from various sectors to look at what this research is about, which will give some more details. Some of the findings that we've already had for this phase would also be presented. And then following that, we would also see how we can contribute as from the various sectors we are coming from, maybe as government and policy, or as CSOs, or as academicians, and also as media, how we can come together to address the issues. So this is basically I would say, the overview of the project, which is entitled Researching Obesogenic Food Environments in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Thank you very much. I think that was quite an extensive overview. So that's our mandate here. As he rightly put it, I think I also just realized I didn't introduce myself. So, Sankofa, let me do that. So, I'm Charles Apre. I'm also part of the research team in Ghana. And as I was going to say, from the overview, it's very clear that we are all here to play a supportive role and also to contribute our quota. The idea is that we've always complained that the researchers sit in their office and do the research, and then when they finish, they want us to sort of implement it, or probably there isn't much collaboration. We also currently doing another research elsewhere and interviewed a couple of people from these CSOs, government, and other agencies. And anytime you speak to them, one of the things that comes out very strongly is the fact that there isn't much collaboration between the academia and then some other people, especially the people in policy positions, and then the CSOs, as well as even the media. As Reggie Riley said, sometimes when you have some of these results, even how it is reported is equally important in the scientific world. And so that's why this morning we brought all of us together. And so if you look at the program, there is an item on it around 1:45. We are starting late, but I'm still sure by 3 o'clock we are out of here. So there's an item on it around 1:45 where we will try as much as possible to group us according to our interests. So we get those who are coming from the policy areas, the governments, into one group. The CSOs will go into another group. The academia will be in another group. We get a media as well in another group. And we want to look at the role of this group, or the role the environment is contributing to obesity. As Reggie Riley said, obesity is on the rise. And I'm sure my colleagues in academia here would attest to that. Now, initially, our challenge was about malnutrition. And when we were looking at malnutrition, most of the time our focus was only on the undernutrition side. But now there's something we call the double burden of nutrition or malnutrition, where we are only not focused on the malnutrition, but you're also looking at overnutrition. And it's a big issue. And if you look at especially some of these developing countries, initially we thought overnutrition was for developed countries. But if you check the statistics, the rate at which we are running, when I say we are running, the rate at which the overnutrition is increasing. If you don't find a way of arresting this, I'm sure in the next couple of years to come. Our challenge probably will not even be on the undernutrition. Rather, we will probably be spending more on overnutrition than undernutrition. And so that's how come we are here to seek the view of all these consultative groups, and then to have a more collaborative approach to solve this challenge we are facing. I am still thinking that we should call the provost to give their opening. So provost, she is Provost Prof. Bokodro. She's the provost of College of Science. She's the provost of College of Science, and she's here because the project is in the College of Science. And so probably, as you put it, she's our Oga at the top. So, Prof. Yes.
Good morning to you all. Collaborators from University of Western Cape, South Africa, and University of Sydney, Australia. Invited stakeholders from government, academia, civil society organization, friends from the media, and all gathered here. It is with great pleasure I welcome you to Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Kumasi, Ghana. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be part of this stakeholders meeting in Kumasi. This meeting, I see it as an opportunity for us to renew contact and also to enkindle our commitment to collaborate as people from government, academia, civil society organizations to champion a common goal of addressing nutrition problems faced by our country, Africa, and the world as a whole. It's exciting because I've said that is to renew contact. I just met someone which I've not seen for a long time, and I was so excited to see him. And that is one of the ways of getting back to ourselves. Because sometimes the way we are too busy moving around. That contact is not there, but we need that. So I'm very happy to see one of such face. The College of Science, KNUT, is very happy to be part of this collaboration. And my hope is that after our deliberations, a multi-sectorial framework leading to concrete solutions in dealing with the obesogenic, I don't know, food environment would be fashioned out. I was looking at myself. If I weighed myself, am I obese? I don't know. But you might see somebody that looks very slim. And when he's weighed, those are the things we think always when somebody looks big, then it is. So let's be watching out. Because you might see some of us that look very slim, but underneath there is something. This will surely be useful to tackle the issues such as obesity and its related consequences, the rising prevalence of non-communicable diseases in the world, and specifically Ghana and South Africa. I wish you a fruitful deliberation. Once again, welcome to Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And ask yourself, what is the food environment like? What is the food environment like as you deliberate on issues? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof. So the question is, we should be asking ourselves, what is the food environment? I'm sure when we saw the topic, we've been wondering what constitutes the food environment. There are a few instances I've always said that sometimes when you speak to people, there is no doubt we know what a healthy food is. But sometimes even what's available within our reach to purchase alone can take out off the healthy food or the healthy meal we are known or we want to have. So we are of the view that the food environment plays a very important and vital role. And that's why we are here. I want to check. Okay.
Thank you very much. We have some hitches. Guys coming from the hotel are stuck in traffic. So I think that we want to rearrange the program and do some things now so that we will save time practically. Okay, so please forgive us. And so instead of, we're going to call on our Dr. Adu, who is going to talk to us on the food value chain in sub-Saharan Africa. And then if by the time he finishes, they are still not here, we'll have our tea break. Tea break is supposed to be at 10:30, so we can take the tea break. And so please pardon us. It was unforeseen, but the traffic in town today is just beyond what we could have anticipated. So please, let's put our hands together for Robert Adu to come.
Good morning. We were hoping to make this presentation in the afternoon, and so we are forced to do it now. And so let's wait for the slides, and then we go through it one after the other. Thank you very much. So I have titled it Food Value Chain. Food Value Chain. We are talking about obesity, and it usually comes from food. And so we want to understand the movement around food. We have heard a lot about value chain, but before we get to value chain, all right, I think we are ready to go now. All right, so the one you are seeing there on the board is a plate of food. You can see some red there. You can see rice down there. You can also see meat. That's a typical Ghanaian dish. the question to ask is, where did it come from? How did it get to our table? That brings about the issue of value chains. Anytime we are talking about value chain, we are looking at how the food got to our table. Others have referred to it as movement from farm to our dining table where we have our fork to eat. Now, we talk more about movement anytime we are dealing with value chain, because the commodity will have to travel from where it was produced before it gets to a point where we can go and procure, before we can prepare and then put it on the dining table for the family to enjoy. And so all activities that help us to convert all the resources available to us, because we are talking about food, we can begin to think about land. We can begin to think about fertilizers. We can begin to think about seeds. We can begin to think about catalysis. All these things are needed. When we have them, we have to combine them in some way and form so that they are converted to the raw maize that we see. The example I have shown here is egg and then some chickens over here. Before we got the egg, we needed some day-old chicks. Those day-old chicks needed to be hatched in a hatchery. Somebody needed to go and move them from the hatchery all the way to the farm. They were supposed to be kept in a brooding house for some time before they are transferred to the pen where they are now raised. And when they get to a point, we can now begin to get our eggs, which are displayed beautifully over there. Now, when the egg is ready at the farm, the final consumer is sitting far away from the farm. And so the farmer will have to find a way to get the egg to a marketplace. So the farmer can have a relationship, for example, with a woman in the market who will come and buy in large volumes. Go and now keep it in a warehouse. Other women will come to this wholesaler and come and buy in smaller quantities before they also go and retail out. Then the final consumer will go to these retailers, pick one crate or a few quantities, and then send it home. Then the food production process can start in the kitchen before it is ready for the dining table for the family to sit down and then enjoy. And so you see a lot of things happen. It's a long process, and everything that happens along this way is a chain. And what we are saying is that at every node of the chain, there's value that is added. And for us in economics and marketing, when we are talking about value addition, it is not just about transforming the form. When you transform the form, that is one way of adding value to the food commodity. And I think for nutritionists, that is where your interest might be, because maybe the method, the approach, the procedure that somebody will use to transform the primary commodity to a value-added commodity might do something to the nutritional content of the food. And so your interest might be there. But at the end of the day, for us, that is only one form of value addition. When it is at a farm gate and somebody moves it and brings it closer to where you live so you can procure it easily, we also see it as value addition. So it can be the same egg. It has not been fried. It has not been boiled. But the fact that somebody has moved it from one point to another point, which is so close to your doorstep, we say that value has been created. Again, if somebody stores it, and because of the storage, you are able to keep it for a long period of time, let's say rice that has been produced in the major rice producing season. Somebody has a warehouse, is able to keep it there so that when rice is not in season, you can always go and get rice. Value has been created. Here we talk about time utility. If I need it now, I will get. In the lean season when nobody is producing rice, if I need it, I will get. You can take tomato as an example. It will be produced in large volumes in Akumadan, for example. If we were to have processing plants there, they can convert them to canned tomato or whatever form that is available. When that is done, it can be stored for a very long time. So when we are in the lean season and nobody is producing tomatoes in Akumadan, you can still go to the market and have access to it. So if you create that environment so that people continually get what they want at the time that they want it, value has been created. And finally, when I'm holding something, I have possession of that thing. I derive a certain satisfaction from it. When you give me money and I give you that thing, I have transferred possession to you, and you begin to derive satisfaction from it. So if you are hungry and you need food, if you are thirsty and you need water, and somebody gives you that water, you have now gained possession of water, and that gives you a certain satisfaction. Value has been created for you. So all these value addition things that we are talking about, if we are able to do that so that the final consumer is happy, then we say that the value chain is working and working very well. So it's a long chain of activities. Now, what is interesting is how we analyze these value chains. Different people have approached it from different angles. If you read the literature, others approach it from a purely marketing perspective. Others will also do some stakeholder analysis. Others will also have a blend of various approaches in order to do this value chain analysis. I could not develop this bit, so I'll just speak to that. Normally, what we try to do is to first identify the key players in the chain. We are talking about, let's say, an egg at your table. All the actors within that chain that made it possible for that egg to get to your table, we first have to identify them. So if we have AgriCare, for example, that produces feed, that the poultry farm had to go and buy, AgriCare becomes a critical player in that chain. Then you, the farm that is producing the bears, which will produce the egg, you are also part of that chain. And then that woman who comes all the time to buy the egg in bulk, we can call the person a wholesaler. That is part of the chain. Then the retailer. So we have to identify all these players and then try and understand the relationship among them, how they relate to one another. And we do that through what we call value chain mapping. So you try to map the chain to understand who is here, and then you try to also trace the pathway and identify the various channels through which the commodity moves to the final consumer. So if there are about 3 or 4 different channels, then you can do some analysis along those channels so that you know which channel is doing better than the other in terms of delivering what the final consumer wants. When we have understood this, the roles that are played by each of these actors can also be discussed and described in the value chain analysis. So what does AgriCare do in this value chain? What does the wholesaler do? Do they just go and buy? Or do they also offer some finances to the producer so that when the producer has finished, then they go and take it and then they pay their loans from that? So if there's any role that they play, we can describe those roles. Then in terms of the relationships, we can also look at whether they are working with written contracts or unwritten contracts. So the way the chain is governed, we can also analyze all those things. And so that is how we approach it. I will just illustrate by giving few slides on some work that we did on the sorghum value chain in Ghana. And this, we don't have copyright over this, but I just want to share them. I'm sure they will not. So the map that I was talking about, for example, we can have a look at this. It's quite messy up there. But if you have a closer look, it gives you an idea of who is part of this chain. And where the arrows are pointing will tell you the movement. And we have even gone into details to identify the proportions of the product that moves from the district market to the regional market to all the locations that are so important to us. Now, down there, you also see that we have provided some information on some players in the enabling environment. We're talking about policy. Apart from the core actors in the chain, we usually also have key stakeholders. So Ministry of Agri, for example, will be critical when we are talking about food commodities. Ministry of Health will be critical. All these players are very critical anytime we are talking about the value chain, because whatever policies they come up with affect the performance of each of the actors within the chain. And so this was how we mapped it. Then after this, we focus on the individual actors within the chain. So the one you are seeing on the board is just a summary of the margins that we calculated for producers alone. So we did this study in Brown and Halfway Northern, Upper East, Upper West regions, and so we tried to analyze to find out whether farmers were making it or they were not making it within that chain. And as you can see, from this last bar, those to your extreme right, you will see that farmers are getting gross margins and net margins that are in the negative zone. So obviously, you see that farmers within that chain are not doing very well. Then we looked at those who are in the middle of the chain between the farmer and the final consumer, the intermediaries. So the aggregator is there, the wholesaler is there, and the retailer is there. And their margins and gross margins and net margins have also been projected. And so that is how we approach this kind of analysis. And it tells you that they are having positive margins as far as that crop value chain was concerned. Now, if you put all of them together on the scale, and then you look at only the green bars, which are the net margins that each one is getting, when you have taken care of all the costs, you will see that it is only the farmers whose margins are in the negative. All the others are having positive margin. So I remember when we were having a stakeholders discussion in Tamale with all the actors in the sorghum value chain, one of the farmers remarked that I can use my land to produce other commodities. I am not supposed to produce only sorghum. That land can do maize. It can do other things. So why should I continue to produce sorghum for Guinness Ghana to brew 8 Guinness when I am not making any profit? So there are a lot of challenges. One critical challenge that we found in this chain was that there was lack of visibility in the chain. The aggregator goes to negotiate a price with Guinness, and then the nucleus farmer has no idea as to how much a bag of sorghum is going for. Then the nucleus farmer also comes to negotiate with outgrowers that you produce for me, and then I'll give you this. Meanwhile, he has agreed with the aggregator that I'm giving you this at this price. So the outgrower doesn't know the price that the nucleus farmer is taking from the aggregator. The nucleus farmer doesn't know the price that the aggregator is taking from Guinness Ghana. And so there's a lot of information asymmetry within that particular chain, and it doesn't augur well at all. And so this is their earnings expressed as a percentage of the revenues that they were getting. Now, in value chain analysis, we also try to see the distribution of the margin among the actors within the chain to see whether it is quite fair. usually, if you put in 10% of the total cost, you are supposed to earn about 10% of the margin along the chain. But if you put in more and you are getting less, and somebody puts in less and that person is getting more, then we say that there's unequal distribution of margins along the chain, and that doesn't augur well for the future of the chain. So you can see, for example, on this board, the processors, the local processors who were turning the sorghum into pito, as we call it, the local beer, and then those who were doing porridge. The first bar, the transaction cost one, you see they were incurring 67% of the total costs within the chain. However, in terms of distribution of margins, they were getting a whooping 76%. Let's take a look at the green one, retailers. They were taking 9% of the cost, but in terms of margin, they were getting only 4%. The blue one, aggregators, they were investing only 11%, and then they were getting 16% of the margin. So that tells you that in this sorghum value chain, distribution of margin is not equitable. Equitable distribution ensures sustainability in the chain. If the farmer is not happy with the way margins are distributed, next time they will not produce for you. So you will not get anything to retail, you will not get anything to do your wholesaling. And so in value chain analysis, we also do these kinds of things. Then the final leg of the analysis, we looked at the various constraints at each of the nodes of the chain. And so we take farmers and understand their constraints, and then you take processors, understand their constraints, you take wholesalers, and then try to understand their constraints. So we use these web diagrams to indicate the various constraints. So the last slide I have put here, implications for this work. We are going to try in the phase 2, at least from my perspective, to understand the various actors within the commodities that we are going to select. We are not going to deal with all crops. We are not going to deal with all food commodities. From phase 1, we should be able to identify few commodities that are healthy and few commodities that are obesogenic, if my use of the word is right. And then we'll try to identify the actors, try to develop a value chain map where we'll see all the channels, and then try to do the margin analysis and see how much value is added as the commodity moves from one node of the chain to the other. And like I demonstrated, we'll also try and see whether the margin distribution is equitable. Then issues of governance. Who is the leader in the chain? We are going to also answer that question. The type of governance structure that pertains in that particular value chain, we are also going to identify that and describe that. And then contract issues, whether people work within that chain with written contract or just gentleman's agreement as we know it in Ghana. And then there are issues of upgrading. Products within the chain, are they upgraded? Do they change form from time to time? Then process. The technology that they are using at each of the nodes, from time to time, do they improve the technology, or it is just the traditional methods that people are using? In terms of functional upgrading, if I am a producer within the chain, am I forever going to remain a producer, or it gets to a point where I graduate from primary producer and I become a distributor or a processor? We'll try and see all these dynamics, whether they are happening there. And then we'll try and see whether there are particular constraints at specific nodes of the chain. Then for me, I think one key question that we have to also try and understand from a nutritional perspective is, as the commodity moves from one node to the other, and people are adding value, what happens to the nutritional level? Does it go down? Do they add some micronutrients as we move along? And what implications will that have for obesity and related matters? I think on that note, I would like to end here. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eddie. So we will allow for one or two questions if there is any. Then we continue the program. If there are any questions or clarification we want on the presentation he did. Yes, please.
The researchers who breed and things, you didn't identify them. Yeah, breeding and.
Thank you very much. The map I showed, what was showing all the channels. The outer, we had the breeders there. We even had Grains and Legumes Development Board as the foundation seed producer and also certified seed. So they are all part of the enabling environment. Researchers, government institutions, financial institutions, all these people who help the core actors to be able to do what they do. They are all part of it.
Any other question, please? Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead. At a point, I noticed that you were using value creation and value addition interchangeably. I want to be clear on that.
Well, I have not read theoretically to find out the difference, but I was using them interchangeably. If you create value, you have added value. And for example, if you take any food commodity, like I indicated, if you change the form, if you change cassava roots to gari, we will say in economics that you have added value. If that gari is stored for some time, and at the time that I need it, it is made available to me, we still consider it as value addition. The reason is that you are going to incur costs in holding that quantity for 2 months, 3 months. And so when you are now selling it to me, you are going to add that extra cost of storage to the original cost that you procure the gari. Okay, so in Michael Porter's framework of value chain analysis, you see that the price at which the final consumer buys that thing increases by the additional cost that the actor incurred in adding that extra value. And so that's why I said, as you move along the chain, some value is created. That's why somebody will bring plantain from Goso to Kumasi. The same plantain. They haven't changed anything, but the price will change because he has taken the risk to go there, transport it all the way, and has brought it to Sofola where you can go and have it.
Okay, Dr.
Thank you for your presentation. My question, I'm asking at the risk of swimming in shallow waters because my training is in nutrition and public health. But please indulge me. I think that when it comes to nutrition, one of the issues that you would have to be concerned about, particularly in the issue of obesity and the role food plays in it, is standards. How do you see standards playing a role along the value chain to be able to maintain nutritional health?
Thank you very much. Standards are important. So in the enabling environment, for example, as far as food is concerned, Food and Drugs Authority will be critical. Ghana Standards Authority will be critical. And so maybe in our analysis, when we settle on the commodities, we would have to find out how effectively Food and Drugs Authority are performing their role, how Ghana Standards Authority, how they are performing their role. We can even ask the actors to grade or to rate the performance of these standard authorities by giving them some like a scale ranking so that they can tell us whether they think that they are effective or not effective or whatever. We can develop a scale so that we can have an idea as to what the actual players in the chain think about the effectiveness of this. So I think it's a good thing, and they are part of the chain, so obviously they will be identified, and then we can do some simple analysis around that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Edu. I think we'll have a short break, and during the break, we can have more interactions. Thank you very much. So we have our, some other people have joined us, and we want to seize the opportunity to briefly introduce them. So could you please get your microphone on and introduce yourself briefly?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rina Swart from the University of the Western Cape, Department of Nutrition and Dietetics.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Flo. I'm with the Institute for Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies at the University of Western Cape.
Good morning. My name is Anne-Marie Tho. I'm here from the University of Sydney, where I teach health and nutrition policy.
Morning everyone, I'm David Sanders. I'm from the School of Public Health at the University of Western Cape in South Africa and involved with this research project.
Good morning everybody. My name's David Neves, so that's another David. I'm also based at the University of Western Cape. I'm at the same research unit as Flo, or Florian. It's the Institute for Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies, and I'm one of the researchers on this project. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Oti from the International Development Research Center. We are funding this research.
I'm Matilda Rebidanso for Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Women in Agri Development.
Wonderful. So you all once again welcome. Our partners who just joined us, I think we were running a bit late, so we started the program. So we've done the welcome and introduction, like how you just introduced yourselves. The Provost of the College of Science has given her welcome address. And so let's continue, but we have to do a little reshuffling, so the value chain analysis discussion has already been done. And so from here, we want to call on Samuel to give us a brief on introduction to IDRC Food Systems Research Program. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I know, you're awake. Yes, so good morning, and Akwaba. Sorry we are late, we're caught up in traffic. My name is Samuel Oti. I represent the International Development Research Center. I'm a senior program specialist with IDRC. And I'm managing the food environment, and I'm one of the managers on the food environment and health program. And a little bit about IDRC, in case you're not familiar with us. We are, for lack of a better term, a donor agency. I don't like to use that terminology, but we were set up by an Act of Parliament, Canadian Parliament, in 1970. And the intent was for us to support research on a variety of development issues in the developing world. And we are different from other funders to the extent that we focus on strengthening the capacity of researchers in developing countries to develop and implement research. So typically we don't fund researchers from developed countries. We fund research in developing countries, and that's how we've operated for more than almost 40-something years now. And that has really been a strength and a distinguishing feature of our work. We work in a variety of areas, very, very broad, from climate change to food security to agriculture, and obviously to what brings us here today, which is health. And specifically within health, we have two major areas of thematics: maternal and child health, and what brings us here today, which is food, environment, and health. So why food, environment, and health? The emphasis is on non-communicable disease prevention for us. And we used to call this particular program that I represent the non-communicable disease prevention program. But due to some restructuring at IDRC, that evolved over time, and we decided to both broaden and at the same time narrow. I know that's a bit of a paradox, but we wanted to move out of the restriction of just being called an NCD prevention program, but to look at the wider food, environment, and health prevention thematic. And so my task as a senior program specialist for Africa is to build a portfolio of research projects that are focused on food systems research, but with an emphasis on the prevention of food-related non-communicable diseases. And as you know, that would include conditions like diabetes, obesity, certain kinds of cancers, hypertension, but with an emphasis on modifying or protecting the food system and ensuring that unhealthy food does not predominate over healthy food. In other words, making the food system healthier. And why is this important, at the risk of stating the obvious? Because there are a number of ways you can address non-communicable diseases. You could wait until people get the disease and then try to treat them. And that's fair enough. And there are people who have, I'm sure if I go through the room and I ask, I'm sure we all know somebody with one form of NCDs or the other, whether it's hypertension, diabetes. We all know somebody, right? If not ourselves, God forbid. But, you know, that's the reality of the situation. But by that time, it's typically too late. And, you know, cost of treatment becomes high, risk of complications become higher. So we want to move a step backwards and see what can we do about making the environment, the food environment, healthier. Because experience from almost everywhere else, especially in the developed world, has shown that as economies develop, waistelines also expand. And this has been shown almost without, barring a few exceptions. And so what can we do now, especially in Africa, where we are all developing, we all have our economies growing at 6%, 7%. What can we do now to ensure that as our economies improve, we don't, suffer from this rising burden of food-related NCDs? And so that's how this portfolio of research came about. And we are very happy to be associated with the team at University of Western Cape and the team here at Kwame Nkrumah University. And as you have heard, the whole idea of this research is trying to understand the food environment in Kumasi as a proxy for Ghana, and in Western Cape as a proxy for, and in Cape Town as a proxy for South Africa. And you'll see, I don't know which of the presentations have happened yet, but you would see, or you may have seen, that South Africa is at a more advanced level than we are. Obviously, it's the most advanced country in Africa, but at the same time, it's also the most advanced in terms of, the obesity and NCD epidemic. So there's a lot that we can learn from what is going on in South Africa, but we don't want to replicate that. We don't want to get there in Ghana, if possible. We want to implement interventions right now that can prevent Ghana from transitioning the way that, if possible, the way that South Africa has transitioned. And so that's the big idea for us, trying to change the food environment. We have great food in West Africa, as you know, but if we don't protect the food environment, if we don't put the right policies in place, if we don't put the right regulations in place, we're going to lose those foods to junk food. It's happening in Nairobi, where I'm based. I always give this example. When KFC opened in Nairobi for the first time 3 years ago, there were queues for a month in Nairobi. And I'm not going to stand here and pretend that I'm holier than anyone. I have ordered KFC. I'll be honest. I remember this one time I ordered, and before I put down the phone, the guy was at the door. There's no way healthy food can beat that. It's almost impossible. They're so efficient, they're so aggressive, and the food is so cheap. And you could argue that it's also delicious. So what do we do about that? What do we do about that? And that's where we need the research. And that's where we need research that will inform policy, and make a change, and protect our food environment from becoming unhealthy. So I welcome you all, and I'm sure we're going to have a very great discussion today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Don't go soon. I think you said a couple of things. Probably, let's put you on the hotspot. Any question, please? You just allow for one or two questions, then we continue.
All right, I think I might have spoken Latin. Nobody understood.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, let me take the first bite. Please, do you still have your funding application window open for 2018, or is closed already?
All right, the good thing about this specific line of funding is that it's open. So there's no limitation. On our website, if you just look for, call for inviting ideas on food systems research, if you just Google, if you just type it in the search engine of IGRC.ca, you'll see that open call for ideas that we have. And essentially what we want is for you to send a 2-page concept note maximum, just giving us a brief idea, proposed methods, the team that you put together. And if that idea is aligned and we're convinced that you have the capacity or there's potential of that, then we can invite you to develop a more detailed concept note. And the timeline is up to you to decide. If you want to develop it by the next day, great. If you want to do it in a month, that's fine. But it's an open invitation for now. It's not like that across the center. We have competitive calls in other domains. We recently concluded one on the economics of tobacco control. That ended in December. So now we're inviting those that were successful to submit full proposals. So it's not always that we have this open invitation. So I urge you, if you're a researcher, if you know researchers, to take advantage of this while it exists.
Okay, last question, please. Ooh, okay, I think you are good. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So, I think there's one thing I also want to tell us. There's a washroom at the back here. So, in case you want to use the washroom, you could go out here, the exit gate here, there's a gate here, and I think there's proper direction to take you to the washroom. So, the next presentation is going to be delivered by Prof. David Sanders. David is our PI, the head of the research team. In Ghana, we don't throw away titles, so he's actually a professor emeritus, so I should add that. And he's the head of the team. So David, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Charles, and good morning, everyone. We're sorry we were late. The traffic was terrible, and we weren't driving. So I'm sorry I've missed the introductions that people must have given earlier, but hopefully we'll meet people during the tea break. Please do come up to us and have a chat. So I'm going to try and cover quite a bit of territory because this issue of nutrition, both undernutrition and the problem of overweight and obesity, are huge problems in our societies, and actually the problems of under and so-called overnutrition are intimately linked. We're learning much more about that as science progresses. So I'm very quickly going to talk about the significance of nutrition globally, a little bit about undernutrition, hunger, and food security, and then I'm going to focus on overweight and obesity, the trends, the determinants, and especially the dietary factors in the food system, which is driving these dietary factors. And finally, just some suggestions on how we can address this problem of the double burden. So just an overview of where we are in Africa. In Africa, we are lagging quite considerably, for example, in life expectancy. Although there have been improvements in the last 20 years or so, actually our life expectancy remains unacceptably low. In terms of under 5 mortality, the great majority of young child deaths are occurring in Africa and in South Asia. And you can see that the rates in Africa remain very high. In 2015, 83 children under 5 per 1,000 died before their 5th birthday. This is completely unacceptable. What are the main causes? I'm not going to go through these, but preterm and newborn deaths are the biggest cause, followed by pneumonia and problems like diarrhea. So all of these top 3, are closely related to undernutrition. 45% of global under 5 deaths are associated with nutritional factors. And these large causes are intimately associated. And despite progress, there is growing inequality. In 1970, the risk ratio between the industrialized world and so-called developing countries was 9. In other words, 9 times risk for a child dying before 5. In 2015, that risk was 11 times greater. In other words, even though the risk of dying has declined in the global north as in the global south, the gap between the rich countries and the poor has actually increased. So we've just emerged from the MDG era, and there were 3 health-related MDGs. And I've highlighted MDG 4, which was to reduce under 5 mortality by 2/3. How did we do? Well, in sub-Saharan Africa, at current rates of progress, we will reach our MDG 4 target in 2027. For this part of Africa, only in 2032. So this region remains still far behind in terms of child mortality, and I can show similar slides, but I won't, for maternal mortality. So now the MDG era is over, and we've got the Sustainable Development Goals, having not achieved the Millennium Development Goals. So now we have much more ambitious goals, 17 goals, 169 targets, and we are going to try to attain those by 2030. So what's good about the SDGs? Well, what's good about them is that it recognizes that sectors, different sectors, contribute to both human and planetary well-being. So this is good, that all of the important sectors have a role. The other thing that's good is that the slogan of the SDGs is "Leave no one behind." So it recognizes that inequality has increased between north and south and within countries. And these goals attempt to address that. So, on to nutrition. So, we have this double burden with, on the one side, undernutrition, manifested in particular by childhood stunting, although there is hidden malnutrition in the form of micronutrient deficiencies, but they go together. So you can see very large numbers of children are stunted on the left side, and on the right side, a big and growing problem of overweight and obesity. So 1 in 4 of the world's children are stunted, and overweight and obesity is increasing. In 2015, 2.3 billion adults were overweight and 700 million obese. So this is the focus of what we're looking at today. So just to return to this undernutrition issue, in Africa, in 2015, 60 million children were stunted. That is a prevalence of about 40%. So stunting, as you probably know, which means being too short for your age, in other words, suboptimal growth, stunting and the process of becoming stunted doesn't only contribute to poor physical development, it also contributes to poor mental development and predisposes to later obesity. So this new relationship is very important, that stunting in childhood puts you at greater risk of becoming overweight or obese and developing certain non-communicable diseases earlier. So SDG 2 is about achieving zero hunger and food security and improved nutrition and promoting sustainable agriculture. So I heard Robert talking about the food value chain, which is obviously key in this, and our research will be looking at that, and we'll hear a little bit more later on. So what is food security? So this is the FAO definition of food security, and food security is about both access to food, sufficient food, but also safe and nutritious food. So it's very important for us not to think of food security as only about enough food. I think that's an old perspective on food security. It's about enough food, safe food, and nutritious food. So what's happening with food insecurity globally? Well, one driver of food insecurity is food prices. So as you can see on this graph, since 2006, food prices have risen extremely sharply. And this, of course, is putting people, especially people who are predominantly dependent on purchased food, at great risk. So urban populations, and urban populations are growing rapidly, are put at increased risk by food price rises. So what's driving these? Well, certain agreements under the World Trade Organization, especially the Agreement on Agriculture, have resulted in huge shifts in food across borders, from north to south and to some extent from south to north, and of course from south to south. Last night we heard that Brazilian chicken is big in Ghana. And then there are other agreements. So the intention of all of this is to improve food security by allowing freer flows of food. However, in terms of food, developing countries are importing much more than developed countries are, proportionately. And actually, food production has increasingly shifted over the past 3 or 4 decades from the global south to the global north. Although there are some countries in the global south, like Brazil, which are very big food producers. But in terms of Africa, Africa is increasingly becoming a net food importer. So this puts our national food security at risk. And one of the reasons that the global north are producing surpluses is because their farmers are subsidized. This continues despite protestations from the global south. So these are just some countries with total agricultural subsidies given to farmers. So you can see the really big one is 121 billion for the EU, 39 billion, 38.9 United States. And per capita farmer, Swiss farmers get the biggest subsidy. So why should a Swiss cow enjoy a higher income than an African citizen? Because if you divide the total subsidy to the dairy industry in Switzerland by the number of cows, it comes to over $1,500. An African citizen earns, on average, about $750 a year. So things are weighted against Africa. And of course, so much for free trade is it fair trade. We were talking about this last night. So the EU tariff for the cocoa which is produced here, and I understand most cocoa production in the world is here and in Sierra Leone and some in Ivory Coast. You can easily export your cocoa into the EU, only a 0.5% tariff. But if you start to produce chocolate, you will be penalized. You will have to pay 31% tariff in order to get into the European Union. So the value added is in the north. The raw materials come from the south. So other causes of food price rises, speculation on the international market. So there are traders who speculate on future food prices. They buy up next year's production of maize or wheat from the big producers, hold it, and then release it onto the market when the prices rise, or when the artificial shortage that they've created results in food price rises. And finally, land grabs. So land grabbing is big in Africa. I understand even in Ghana there's been some land grabbing recently. That means buying up of large tracts of land, sometimes not using it, but often using it to grow foods which are then used in processing and manufacturing. So the number of countries that are now net food importers is increasing, and African countries are amongst those. So under nutrition, which when I was a pediatrician in practice, I was told it was a big problem, a health problem, but actually it's a political problem. It derives from unfair politics. So now we have this double burden in many countries, including in this country. But in countries like South Africa, it's a big problem. And why is it a problem? Well, as Sam said earlier, non-communicable diseases are closely related to being overweight or obese. Not all non-communicable diseases, I'll show that in a minute, but you can see that communicable diseases still remain, especially in the younger age groups, a very significant cause of mortality. But when we get to the above 30s, we see that non-communicable diseases predominate. So NCDs kill 40 million people per year, about 70% of all deaths globally. And 15 million of those who die are between the ages of 30 and 69. So these are premature deaths. So what are the NCDs? Cardiovascular diseases, cancers, chronic respiratory illnesses, and diabetes. And these are the top 4 and are driven by tobacco use, physical inactivity, alcohol, and increasingly unhealthy diets. So it is not the case that chronic lung disease is driven by unhealthy diets, but diabetes, heart disease, certain cancers, high blood pressure, unhealthy diets are centrally involved. So overweight and obesity is a driver. And if we look at what's happened between 1990 and 2014, the global burden of overweight and obesity in young children has increased. These are trends for overweight and obesity in the US, but also in 8 low and middle income countries. And childhood obesity predicts adult obesity. There's a close correlation between early body mass index and adult BMI. So, what is the role of dietary factors? So these slides are taken from a leader in this field, Carlos Montero. So I'm going to very quickly go through this because he has a very, I'd say he has a unique perspective, but one that's being increasingly adopted. So classically, food is divided into these big 5 food groups. I think some of you will know them. But this is not very helpful in policy. So Carlos divides food up into essentially unprocessed and processed foods. So unprocessed foods are seeds, leaves, roots, fruit, animal food, fungi, algae. Most unprocessed foods are highly perishable, can't be stored for a long time, and of course they require processing in the kitchen, basically. So food processing converts unprocessed foods into foodstuffs that have a longer shelf life, easily stored, and time is reduced in their preparation. So these are the types of food processing. Minimal, like foods which are clean, chilled, frozen, vacuum packed, dried, and so on. And they're generally positive in terms of health outcomes. Then we have processed culinary ingredients, where we extract stuff from foods, like oils, fats, sugars, starches. And they also generally have a positive impact on health if used wisely. And then we have this group called ultra-processed products, where substances are extracted from food and then put together again, usually involving additives, and these foods have a long shelf life. So here's a list of some of them. And I'll show some of them. But their trade-offs with health are increasingly negative. So here's an ultra-processed product. And here's another one, and other breakfast cereals. And of course, sugary beverages. And chicken nuggets, ultra-processed. So what's wrong with them? What's the problem? Well, overall, they have less protein, less fiber, more sugar, more total fat, including trans fats, more sodium or salt, and more energy per volume. And now a lot of mechanisms have been defined linking ultra-processed products to overeating and obesity. High energy density, liquid calories, hyperpalatability, that means much more tasty, you want more, supersized servings, mindless eating, and eating on the run, and aggressive marketing. So, aggressive marketing, like by McDonald's and others, eating on the road, targeting children. So what's happening? So we don't have data from many countries, but here are some data from Brazil, where as a percentage of total calories, you can see there's been a reduction for rice, beans, meat, and milk, and an increase in the share of total calories from breads, cookies, soft drinks, sweets, sausages, and ready meals, i.e. from the ultra-processed products, from snacks and fast meals and mindless eating. And in Brazil, just over a 6-year period, ultra-processed products went up as a component of the total calories taken in. And here's kind of the top ultra-processed product countries. You see the UK and Canada are leaders, Chile and Mexico followed by Brazil. Now South Africa is not yet on this chart, but I think it should be. We don't yet have the data. So there's a direct relationship between the percentage of obese people in the population and the percentage of ultra-processed products consumed. A very strong correlation. And the caloric share of soft drinks, sugary beverages, and the percentage obese in the country. So this is how we have evolved. This is where we are now. The man in the front is increasingly seen in our societies. So, finally, South Africa, a warning for Ghana. So, in South Africa, these are our top causes of premature mortality. I'm not dealing with the top ones, but the top ones, especially low respiratory infection, diarrheal disease, are related to undernutrition, which I talked about. But the ones in the box are related to overweight and obesity. So these are some data from one province in South Africa. The light bars are in 1990, and the dark bars in 2008-9, so an 18-year difference. It's not exactly the same people, but the same areas, population categories. So you can see there's a massive increase over an 18-year period, especially in the older age groups. 2 or 3 and almost 4-fold increase in the prevalence of diabetes. Prevalence of hypertension in South Africa is enormous. These are from our recent demographic and health survey. So you can see that over 50% of people over the age of 40 have got high blood pressure. And that arrow there shows the rates of obesity in women. So these are women who are very, very overweight. And you can see it tops 50%. So what are the determinants? So if we think of determinants going from the most downstream or immediate, the biological, all the way up to the structural, these are some of the factors in South Africa. We know that there is an excessive intake from a big national study, excessive intake of fat, which is the blue, and sugar, which is the red column. Nearly 20% of people are consuming too much. South Africans consume about 3 times the world average of Coca-Cola products. There are social and cultural factors operating in terms of body image and in terms of what are perceived as modern foods. And then when we get up to the structural factors, we see that in terms of retail and shopping, the price of the food item is the most important factor. Then there are taste considerations, how long the food keeps, and how convenient it is. And some work we did recently showed that over a short period of time, if you looked at the column on the right, between 2005 and 2010, the rate of sales of ready meals, snack bars, and noodles went up by over 40%. And we have a few companies that dominate the manufacturing, the processing and manufacturing node in the food chain, and they are 5 South African large corporations and 5 transnationals like Unilever, Nestle, Parmalat, and so on. And you can see on the right that the products that they are producing are nearly all ultra-processed products. So Africa, although, because the size of the circle denotes the value of retail sales, our circle is not very big yet. But you can see that the percentage growth in retail sales is at present, when this was done, about 1% in terms of growth, but 12% in terms of total retail value. And in some of our countries, modern retail outlets are becoming more prominent. In South Africa, they're very prominent. Supermarkets account now for about 50 to 60% of all food sales. And healthier foods are generally much more expensive. And we find that stunted children and obese mothers in the same food insecure household is a common feature now. These are from India, just showing that the prevalence of overweight and obesity is higher amongst those who shop in supermarkets, which is the hatched bars, and the proportion of people who are obese, same. So these are supermarkets in Cape Town where we live, and you can see between 2003 and 2013, each black dot representing a supermarket, there's been a huge increase in the number of supermarkets. And finally, we find that our packaged food market size has grown enormously in the last 15 years, 10 to 15 years. And we're importing from outside of South Africa lots of ultra-processed products, sugary beverages too, and we're exporting into the region. So these are imports into South Africa, the black, and imports into Southern Africa Development Community is the lighter color, and it starts in 1995, and you can see by 2010, very, very large quantities. And South Africa is exporting into the region sugary beverages, processed meats, and all of this is driven by liberalization of trade in our region through a whole number of agreements which have been undertaken over the last 20 years or so. So we know that our trade policies are contradictory to our health policies. I'm not going to go into foreign direct investment. I have a publication on that. Just suffice it to say that it's growing tremendously, foreign direct investment, especially in supermarkets and fast food chains, and that transnationals are driving this, and transnationals rule. Of the 100 biggest economic entities globally, 63 are now corporations, and only 37 are countries. And the transnationals are targeting us. They're looking at markets in the global south. So this food system is causing a public health disaster. And we are in the eye of the storm. Ghana is behind South Africa, but you can be very sure that after Kenya, Nigeria and Ghana are going to be targets, because our populations are quite unaware of these problems, and with urbanization we've got a much bigger market than we had 20 years ago, when agriculture was still actually the basis of our economies. So I think I'll stop there and let you go for tea, but please don't consume too many ultra-processed products, and I hope that there are no sugary beverages.
Thank you. David, we have some time for at least one or two questions, if you want to respond to one or two questions. Then we go for tea. Okay. So the floor is open if there are some few questions you want to put it up to him. Else, when we go for tea, we can also have further interactions. So is there a consensus? We go for tea for further interactions? Great. Thank you. So we are going to be back. It's 11:15, so we're going to be back at 11:45. You have a 30 minutes rest. So let's make ourselves comfortable out there with some tea. Thank you.
Thank